A very good morning to all of you. I am Mr. Kamlesh Ahirwar, Assistant Professor, IIMT College of Science and Technology, Greater Noida. Today, in this session, we will discuss data models and database management system. We will learn especially a ERD, Entity Relationship Diagram. First of all, we will see what is data models and how to model data in database management system and how to modeling the entity and how to relate it the entity to another entity on the basis of attribute. So data models are used to show how data is stored, connected, accessed, and updated in the database management system. It means the data, how to store, how to connect it, and how to access, how to manipulate it and update it in the database management system. Data models are fundamental entity to introduce abstraction in database management system. Data models define how data is connected to each other and how they are processed and stored inside the system. In this picture, we will see this entity and this entity. The two entity is related to based on the common attribute. What is the common? Based on the this entity has some attribute and this entity has some attribute. The common relationship between two entities. This is the relationship between two entities. One entity and two entities. Entity denoted by the rectangular and relationship denoted by the diamond symbol and attribute denoted by the ellipse. Oval. Ellipse or oval. What is ER model? Entity relationship model. Entity relationship model stands for an entity relationship model. ER model stands for an entity relationship model. It is a high-level data model. This model is used to define the data elements and relationship for a specified system. It develops a conceptual design for the database. It also develops a very simple and easy to design view of data. In ER modeling, the database structure is portrayed as a diagram called an entity relationship diagram. This is the student is an entity, course is an entity, both are the entity and relationship between the course and student. The study on the basis of study. The relationship created on the basis of study between two entities, course and student. The student has some attribute and course also has some attribute. These are the attribute or these are the entity. Okay. ERD. An entity relationship diagram is a diagram that represents relationship among entities in database. It is commonly known as an ER diagram. An ER diagram in DBMS plays a crucial role in designing the database. Today's business world review all the requirements demanded by the user in the form of an entity relationship diagram. This is the entity relationship diagram. What is the components of entity relationship diagram? First one is entity, also the component and attribute and relations. Entity is a subtype of weak entity. Attribute is a type of attributes type is key attribute, composite attribute, multi-valued attribute, derived attributes, and relations has a four type of relation: one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relation, many-to-one, and many-to-many relations. Okay. So we will see one by one in the next slides. First of all, what is entity? An entity may be an object, class, person, or place. In the ER diagram, entity can be represented as rectangle. Any entity is a real-world object which has some properties, which has some attribute. Okay. And consider an organization as an example: manager, product, employee, department, etc. can be taken as entity. Suppose here is the employee is a entity, department is a entity. Both of between both that we create the relationship. And employee works for a department. So works for is a relationship. An entity can be two types, tangible entity or intangible entity. Entities that exist in the real world, physical, that is called tangible entity, like for example, person, car, etc. Intangible entity, which entity that exists only logical and have no physical existence. For example, bank account number, bank ID, bank IFSC code, bank MICR number, bank phone number, and bank code. All are the details have a bank account, but it's not exist in real world or physically. Which one is physically present? Person. I am a person. I am a teacher. So I exist in a real world. So I am a tangible entity. Car, because car has a number, model number, registration number, color. So this is the or physically available. So this is the entity. Okay. What is the beak entity? An entity that depend on another entity called a beak entity. The beak entity doesn't contain any key attribute of its own. The beak entity is represented by a double rectangle. For example, a room can only exist in a building. Okay, the room has some properties. It's like room number, room ID, and room existing on the basis of the building. Room can only exist in a building. And another example is the loan installment. Installment is a big entity because of installment is depend on the loan. Without loan, no existing of installment. Like in the building, without building, no existing of the room. So room entity is dependent on the building. So room is a big entity. Here's the installment is dependent on the loan. So installment is the big entity. Okay, because of installment is dependent on the loan. And what is attribute? The attribute is used to describe the property of an entity. Eclipse is used to represent an attribute. For example, roll number, age, class, name, etc. can be attribute of the student. So student has a roll number, class, age, name. This is the four is the attribute, and student is a entity. The, again, see the attribute is used to describe the property of entity. So the attribute is describing the property of the entity. Okay. On the basis of attribute, another word, on the basis of attribute, we can determine the entity. Okay. Type of attribute, the different type of attribute, composite attribute, single value attribute, key attributes, derived attributes, multi-valued attribute, and simple attribute. So we will see and we will see in the next slide one by one. First of all, key attribute. What is key attribute? The key attribute is used to represent the main characteristic of entity. It represents a primary key. The key attribute is represented by an ellipse with the text underlined. Where is the underline segment? See here, roll number is underlined. So roll number is a key attribute. Because key, what is key? Key is for any column. Key, what is key? Key attribute, which is the uniquely identify a record or uniquely identify a tuple. So specify the key attribute. So roll number is a key attribute because roll number always a unique value. So student has a three attribute. First one is gender, second one is, third one is roll number. So roll number is a key attribute because this roll number is always has contain the unique values. Composite attribute, an attribute that composed of many other attributes known as a composite attribute. The composite attribute is represented by an ellipse and those ellipses are connected with an ellipse. This is the name. Name is also the attribute and name has a first name, middle name, last name. So this is the composite attribute. All three are called the composite attribute. Okay. MultiValue attribute. an attribute can have more than one value. These attributes are also known as multi-value attribute. The double oval is used to represent multi-value attribute. Here is the phone number, is the multi-value attribute. The student has no more than one or two, more than one mobile number. So which attribute has a more than one or two value? This is called the multi-value attribute. The student has a multiple phone number. So this is the multi attribute. Date of birth of date is a single name. Name is a attribute, simple attribute, and first name and last name is a combination of composite attribute. Roll number is we can say roll number is a key attribute, may be key attribute or not be key attribute. It depends on the user how to create which cell, which column is selected, yeah, which attribute is selected for the key attribute. Okay, so a student can have more than one phone number. This is the simplest example. Derived attribute, an attribute that can be derived from other attributes, known as derived attribute. It can be represented by dashed ellipse. This is the dashed ellipse. For example, a person age changes over time and can be derived from another attribute like date of birth. So age is what is age is dependent on the birth date. Without birth date, we cannot define the age any person or any student. So age is dependent on another attribute. Age is dependent on date of birth, any birth of date. The age is called the derived because the age is derived from the birth date. Okay. Simple attribute, an attribute that cannot be further subdivided into components, is a simple attribute. Example, the roll number of a student, the ID number of an employee. Okay, so this is the simple attribute. Single value attribute, a single value attribute can have only a single value. For example, person can have only one date of birth, age, etc. This is the single value attribute. What is tuple? Tuple nothing is. Tuple is a row. Tuple is a row. Tuple is a record. Okay. A tuple in DBMS is just a row that contains interrelated data about a particular entity. Tuple is also called record in DBMS. Tuples are mostly used in relational database management system. Okay, so this is the table and 1, 2, 3, 4. So this table has a 4 tuple because of 4 record or 4 rows. Okay, this is the ER diagram. Okay, student is an entity. Student has this. This is the attribute. Class is the entity. This is the multiple attribute. Class name is attribute. Class ID. Okay, and section is a entity or subject is an entity. It has the many of attribute. Okay, this is the relationship between more than two entities. Section is class between the has a relationship. Subject is student between the study a relationship. Class student that attends a relationship. So these are the relationship create how to create the relation between two entities or more than two. How to relationship? A relationship is how to create the relationship between entity. A relationship is used to describe the relation between entity. Diamond or rhombus is used to represent the relationship. Okay, the teacher or student, between the teacher and student relationship or based on the teachers. So teachers is a relationship. One-to-one relationship, when only one instance of an entity is associated with the relationship, right? Then it is known as one-to-one relationship. For example, a female can marry to one male and a male can marry to one female. So female married to a male is married to a one female, only one. So this is the called the one-to-one relationship. One-to-many, when only one instance of the entity on the left and more than one instance of an entity on the right associates with the relationship, then this is known as a one-to-many relationship. For example, scientists can invent many inventions, but the inventions is done by the only specific scientist. So scientist is invents many inventions. So scientist is one and invents many inventions. So this is invention is many. So it is called the one-to-many relationship. One-to-one relationship, sorry, many-to-one relationship, when more than one instance of the entity on the left and only one instance of an entity on the right associates with the relationship, then it's known as a many-to-one relationship. For example, student enrolls for only one course. Student enrolled for only one course, but course can have many students. Obviously, course have a many. Of course, this is student. Many students enroll in a one course, but course has enrolled in this course. In this course, the many students enrolled for this course. Okay, many to many, when more than one instance of the entity on the left and more than one instance of an entity on the right associates with the relationship, then it's is the known as many to many relationship. For example, employee can assign by many projects and project can have many employees. So this is many employee is assigned for many projects and many project is assigned for the many employees. So this is called the many to many relationship. So this is all the data models and relationship between the entities. Okay. Thank you so much.